All right, good evening, everybody. We are going to call the Human Affairs Committee on March 9th, 2023 to order. It is 7 p.m. and we're in the Aldermanic Chamber. Alderman at Large Shoshana Kelly will be filling in as clerk. She is my vice chair. Our usual clerk, Alderman Klee, has to attend the planning board meeting. Sometimes we get double booked. And Alderman Moran informed me that he would not be able to attend. Clerk Pro Tem, would you like to call the roll?
Sure. Alderman Lopez.
I'm here.
Alderman Kelly's here. We just discussed Alderman Klee, Alderman Moran, and Alderman Timmons.
Here.
You have 3 in attendance.
All right. So tonight's meeting is going to be a little bit atypical just because we have a room full of nonprofits that are planning on presenting their programs as part of our CDBG project. We do have a pretty full agenda besides that. So what we're going to do is ask any members of the public that want to make public comment not specific to an organization or a presentation. They will be able to do so first, and then we're going to invite the nonprofits up. I think Manager Long has a list of names, and so that way everybody will have a chance to talk, present on your programs, and we will kind of stay topically oriented. So if anybody has any public comment relative to the committee's business that isn't relative to CDBG, feel free to come up and make it now. All right, seeing none, Manager Long, would you like to start the, this is like an auction format, you got a gavel?
Thank you everyone for attending. First up, we have the Mary Sweeney Home.
Didn't hear what he said. It's the Mary Sweeney Home.
There you go.
Good evening. My name is George Walker, and I'm here representing the Mary Sweeney Home. For those that aren't familiar with the Mary Sweeney Home, Mary Sweeney Home is located at 50 East Pearl Street. Back in 1972, they bought the old Sister of Mercy convent that is situated on the corner of Spring Street and East Pearl Street. They converted that into a residential home, and it provided homes for apartments for 13 residents at the time. In 1980, they added a second building to that, an addition, which added 18 units. So currently, the Mary Sweeney Home is a 31-unit residential apartment building for independent, single, over 65, low-income women. Current residents' age right now is between 67 and 94, and as of next week, the Mary Sweeney Home will be fully occupied. Our request is twofold. One is to replace 20 PTAC units. 18 would go in apartments, 1 would go in an office, and 1 would go in a common area that we call the library. And the second request is to replace an antiquated security entry system. For those that aren't familiar with what a PTAC unit is, the technical name is a packaged terminal air conditioning unit, which provides heat and air conditioning. Basically, it is what you see in a hotel room. It's a standalone unit that provides both heat and air conditioning. The reason it's only 20 units is because half of the building, the older section of the building, is heat is provided by boiler systems. These 20 PTAC units would go into the newer addition that went in 1980. Some of these units are between 15 and 20 years old. They're not very efficient. We're starting to run into some mechanical problems with them, and that's why we're looking to do that. The second part is to upgrade our security entry system. Currently, right now, we have 5 doors that the residents use to enter the building. They use a fob system. That system is 20 years old. To program that, you have to program each door. So every time we have a resident or a staff member change, we have to go and program each door with a laptop. The newer system would be able to be part of the cloud. We could make upgrades to that through a laptop. But what it does for us is it provides us data on who enters the door, when they enter it, with a timestamp and a date, as well as what door they used. And I think that provides a little bit more security for the residents and it gives us a better idea of who has been or is in the building. So that's the overall request. If there's any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. So at this time, we're just having people make comments. There's a line of them. Alderman, drawing a blank, sorry.
Timmons.
Like you can't Alderman Gloria over. Alderman Timmons, did you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. However, I did visit the Mary
Yeah.
Sweeney house, and I know exactly what you're talking about. We have an obligation to our seniors to do what's right for them.
Yes.
And this is just a comment.
Mhm.
Also, there's some safety issues, quite a few. And the building is old, and we have to do something for our seniors. And thank you for the presentation. I think you did it very well.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
If I could.
Yep, this is a little bit of an unusual meeting, so traditionally in public comment, we let the public go, and then whatever comes out, but in this case, I guess we can allow a little interaction.
I'm just thinking, since everybody's here, I'd love to take a full advantage of it. Usually one of the questions we ask that I would love for everyone to include is, oftentimes there's not enough money to go around, so if you weren't to get fully allocated, how would you make up the difference, or what part of your project might you prioritize?
So I would say that on the security system, I mean, that would have to be fully funded to pull that off. As far as the TPAC units, we could reduce the number that we do. The 20 would do all of them, but obviously if the funding wasn't there, we would adjust it to how many we could do.
Thank you very
So,
much.
all right, thank you.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Senior Activity Center.
Just as a housekeeping thing, when people come up to make public comment, if you do your name and your address, that way the transcriber knows who's speaking and puts it down on the record.
Absolutely. Margot Bell, Executive Director, Nashua Senior Center. My address is 15 Breon Drive, Nashua, New Hampshire. I want to thank you for letting us come here tonight, and I know you have a big agenda, so I appreciate the opportunity. We are a self-standing 501c3, and we were established in 1978. We are housed in this beautiful city building over on 70 Temple Street, and we have been there since 2006. We're asking for support of the roughly $54,000 for a movable partition for the card music room, which is shared space. When we first went into the building, some allocation of space was allotted for a petition, but monies were not available to put that in. So we can't have a music and a card game going on at the same time. We currently have 9 card game groups and 6 music groups sharing the same space. Those 2 items, believe it or not, since COVID, have really researched and are growing. So that's an area we would really like to develop. Funding of the soundproof movable divider would allow increased programming and certainly enhance the city building. I brought Dick Bruno, who is an instructor, a member, to elaborate on how important this would be to those members. And, I'll just step to the side if you have any further questions, but I just wanted him to give his opinion as well.
Thanks, Margo. Dick Bruno, 4 Nightingale Road here in Nashua. Thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. And I just want to sing the praises of the music department and let you know what's going on. We have several activities that I'm involved in. One is the T Street Ensemble. We have a group of people who come in. We actually do 3 and 4-part harmony that we were just doing this week. I've conducted 3 or 4 music theory classes, have another one scheduled, and I have some people who are hanging around during that time slot right now just to do some individual projects that they wanted to learn more about music. Tuesday morning, we have a free-for-all. There could be 5 people there. There could be 15 or 20 people there. They come in, do some solo singing. We have a lot of fun. People who want further instruction on the singing, we can fit that in at the same time. And a lot of those people, their goal is to participate in the senior show, which we do once a year. So that all happening in this room. The Harmonica Saints, you may have heard of that name. They didn't survive COVID, but Will Landry, who heads that group, has another group formed in this room, and they're starting to get pretty good at what they're doing. So he hopes to take them back out into the assisted living places. The Silver Lining Chorus rehearses in the room. They go out and do a lot of work in the assisted living places. We use the space. We could use more instruction. We have outside people come in, do keyboard lessons. We have a man, Benish, who sings in the lounge. I play with him. We call ourselves the Basement Boys. We don't have any place to practice except in front of people in the lounge. And selfishly, it would be more convenient just to schedule people, and we could do some individual lessons at the same time. So we're very active. I've been to all the senior centers locally. None of them have the music that we have going on here. I'd just like you to know that music, it's good for our spirit. It keeps us going. It's also, also good for the mind, just to keep ourselves active in there. So we appreciate it. It would just allow us a lot more free time to schedule even more activities than we have now. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Alderman Timmons.
I want to again comment on the senior center. I've been there as well, and also the fact that Sweeney House is right down the street. I heard the music. I know what happened over at the senior center, and you guys do a great job. And so congratulations on your program, because it's fantastic.
We're also all in Ward 4. Next up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Greater Nashua Habitat for Humanity.
Hi, good evening. I'm Krista Sequenzis, representing Greater Nashua Habitat for Humanity, and we are the local affiliate of Habitat for Humanity International. We serve 14 towns throughout southern New Hampshire, through Hillsborough County. Our programs vary from our home build to our critical home repairs, and one of our most important initiatives is the family support, realizing we can't just sell a house and expect people to be successful. So we're working on building that program as well. We finished a duplex on Paxton Terrace that we sold to 2 veteran single moms. It was a really great experience, and now we have a piece of land on Granite Street ready to build in Nashua. We're at a time of growth, new leadership, new president, and we brought on a new home repair manager and a development coordinator. So we're growing, expanding our programs. We want to shorten our time builds. So we're working on our volunteer management program, trying to get more people. We can build faster. We can get people into homes quicker. And our home repair program as well lets us help more families at a time. We just actually had our application process for the new home that we're building, and 85% of our applicants had children. So they are families in our service area. Our Paxton Terrace families that moved in, one of the best parts talking with them right after, we were able to get them into their schools, start at the beginning of the school year, and within a month, one of the moms told us their children were thriving. They were in the school they were meant to be at. They were stable. The parents felt like a sense of peace instantly, and you could see that just with the home visits that we did. We requested operating funds because we are at this time of growth, and it's partial funding of that would still be applied to all of our programs. Our request was a very small portion of our overall budget as well. It's pretty expensive to build these houses, and operating is a little harder to find, so that's why we put the request in for that. Any questions on our programs?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all the things that you do.
Thank
I
you.
do have a question regarding the selection process.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Sure. So what we do is we set a target date for the applications to open. We reached out to all the towns that we serve, put it out through the town welfare departments. We contacted each town hall. We put it out through social media, through our previous partner families. We had some referrals from there. We also contacted local agencies, so at least three applications in our last process came from other agencies in the area of transitional housing in Nashua. So we reached out to those organizations, and we have a application process open for a month, and then we close it, and then we follow guidelines by Habitat International that we have to let the families know within the following 30 days. And so we just closed that application process.
Okay. May I have a follow-up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we have a family selection committee on board, and we work with a local bank to do income verification and things like that.
Okay, just one other question, and that is regarding, the other towns. How do they
Yes.
contribute to this particular pot, this pool of money? Do you get grant from them as well?
Yes, we put requests in through local private foundations, fundraisers, individual donations. We do reach out to donors in all of our service areas.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you for your presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is the Front Door Agency.
Just a reminder to the public, all of these presentations are referencing a communication that we received and that will be attached to the minutes here. So if anybody's watching from home, trying to figure out like, wait, what are they all referencing? What are these numbers? It'll be it's in the agenda right now, and then it will be also in the minutes, a communication from Urban Programs Planning. Introduce yourself, name and address, and then
You want my home address? Yeah.
whatever address you want to use.
That's fine.
Okay, I
We
am
wanted to
Rebecca
separate
Gagné.
you from the name of all the other people with the same name.
Got you. Okay, so my name is Rebecca Gagné. I'm at 12 Concord Street here in Nashua. I'm representing the Front Door Agency. So we have a longstanding transitional housing program. We've been operating for over 30 years. It's a three-phase program. So we welcome families, single moms with children, into a home located at 12 Concord Street. We have 8 families residing there, and we're really trying in that stage to help them stabilize, find childcare, get their children into school. We're really pushing education that will lead to greater wages and giving them opportunities for self-improvement, wellness, and really healing from their past traumas. Most of our families are coming from violent situations with family members. And so just giving them a safe place to live while they're sorting through that. Once they're in the program, usually between 3 and 6 months, they're either going to school, finding full-time employment, and they're really getting stabilized. We then move them into one of our apartments. So we have 9 units in Nashua that they move into. I should also mention that we do have a program fee in phase 1. It's $395. And these apartments that we're moving them into are 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. And the rent is $400 for a 2 bedroom and $425 for a 3 bedroom. So these are women who may be receiving public benefits, who are usually in entry-level employment, but really helping them with their budgeting and things like that. The thing when they move into their own apartments is they have to also pay their own utility bills. We're working with them on that. They're all attending a intensive financial literacy program so that they can learn these skills and they can take these skills with them when they leave our program. We also have a phase 3 program, which is just providing affordable housing, case management for people who have graduated from a school program, who are working full-time but still don't make enough to afford market rent, which unfortunately right now is many of them because it is so expensive right now. So what we're here tonight asking for is we're looking to replace 2 hot water tanks and 2 high efficiency boilers. And Kevin is our maintenance director, and he can tell you a little bit more about the why that needs to be done, but they're really old and they're not running efficiently. And so we would like to replace those, and I think it will really help our residents with their utility bills, because I'm sure by replacing it, it will be running a little more efficiency and cost effective for them as well. And I think that's really it, I guess. And if you have any questions specifically about what needs to be replaced, Kevin would be happy to let you know.
Kevin, you have any comments, anything you want to add?
I guess I can speak a little on the necessity in terms of
Don't forget
why
name and
they need to be
address.
replaced. So this is a 4-unit building on C Street. 2 of the units have been replaced over the last 10 years, and then the 2 in question are about 30 years old, and they're just not safe. We've worked closely with the city over the last, well, I've been with the agency for 10 years. We've worked with the city on various projects, roofing, siding, windows, doors, you name it, and we've got a good relationship with the city, and quite frankly, I try to do things right. We just had 2 inspections with this gentleman, C Street and Vine Street, over the last 2 weeks. Those inspections went great, so I really try to do things right, and I try to keep up with the maintenance and these boilers. It's just time. There's nothing that can be done to repair them at this point.
Can you give your name and address for the record?
My name's Kevin Gagnon. I live at 16 Broad Street in Hollis.
Okay, and then if you don't mind just adding, what's the average lifespan of these kind of boilers? How often should they be replaced?
It's an interesting question, because the ones that were built 50 years ago that were only rated the last 10 years lasted 100, right? So the ones now, they say you get 15, 20, you're lucky if you get 10. So I guess, what's it?
You want to buy some used ones then, maybe?
I think they've done their job. Again, I don't think, if we could put 500 or 1,000 into them to make them more efficient, which it's just not possible. We've had the chimney relined, so we went through that at expense. And again, we've updated a couple of hot water tanks and expansion tanks, these type of things, and valves and stuff like that, just to conform with code. But these 2 particular systems, it's just time that they be replaced. There's no way avoiding. I'm surprised. So every fall, I tell my boss, I said, this could be the winter that they're just gonna go, and there's no fixing them at that point. So that's pretty much where we're at.
Any questions from the committee?
No, but I do have a comment.
Okay.
Okay,
Alderman Kim.
again, I read your application for the grant, and I was impressed. And also, I got a lot of positive feedback from the public, the community, which I'm out there all the time. So see your constituents or the people that comes use your facilities, and it's always good. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. You should come visit us too.
Okay, we'll come visit.
Perfect.
All right, great
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Next up, we have the First Church of Nashua.
Good evening. My name is Joe Gleich. I reside at 25 Bicentennial here in Nashua, and I've got Brian Crawford here from the front door, or from Family Promise, and also our pastor, Andy Armstrong. Many of you know that First Church is at the top of Library Hill. It's a pretty prominent church in Nashua. We have a long history of supporting both the Nashua and various different charities. We've actually been at that building since 1894, but most people don't realize we've been in Nashua since 1635. So we have a long history in the city. We have...
Longer than the city.
Pardon?
Longer than
the city, yeah.
By like 10
That's
years.
right. We support routinely many agencies like the United Way, the Front Door, the Soup Kitchen and Shelter, the Stepping Stones, and also Family Promise. We were one of the founding congregations in 2000 that set that up. We already support some low-income and transitional housing through both the Front Door and the Family Promise. We have 4 apartments right next door to our church that we lease right now to Family Promise. We have in the past lease some of those to the front door. We provide the front door their building that they have for their offices, which we also own right next door. However, the need for additional units continues, and especially for 2 and 3 bedroom units that are in very short supply and are very expensive. Most of the units we have are 1 or 1.5 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. I'll note that about 7 years ago, we had a capital campaign at the church for some of our own needs. We raised over $2 million, and we dedicated a third of that to the various charities in Nashua, like the Front Door, the Family Promise, and others. So our congregation is very dedicated toward supporting the charities. So what are we looking for at this at 32 Orange Street? That property was originally one of our parsonages. It has been rented as a single-family property for about 30 years, but it's in need of a lot of repairs and refurbishment, and we thought that a more effective way to deal with that property would be to convert it to 2 to 3 bedroom apartments that we could rent out through Family Promise. We will sign a long-term lease with Family Promise, either 20 or 30 years, so we're committed to this for a long period of time. We will continue to own the property, and we'll provide the maintenance and upkeep on it as we do for the other properties that are on our campus, such as the 35 Concord and the Front Door property and our own sanctuary. I'll let Brian talk a little bit about Family Promise in a little minute, but I did want to point out some of the advantages that we see in this property and the proposal. Number one, we already have units that we're managing in this area. It's part of what we consider our campus. And both Family Promise and Front Door and others help us manage that property. The location is really ideal for young families in particular. It's right at the top of Main Street. It's right on the bus line. It's walking distance to schools and playgrounds, and we try to keep it a very safe environment. We have added up some additional security on our own campus in the past couple of years, and we intend to expand that a little bit more so that we can cover the entire agency. And one other sort of ancillary benefit, when we did our capital campaign a few years ago, we put in a commercial kitchen in our building, and we've already had a couple of the nonprofits use that commercial kitchen to teach some of our clients and some of their clients how to prepare good home meals, how to, do very healthy types of things. So it's just another example of why we can put ourselves together with people like Family Promise and others to help the overall community. And Brian, I'll let you talk a little bit about Family Promise specifically.
Thank you. I'm Brian Crawford. I live at 18 Fairhaven Road. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees of Family Promise. Family Promise is a program here in Nashua that supports formerly homeless families, so an adult and a child. 2 years ago, we refurbished the former Infant Jesus School, and we now have about 20-something families living there. They typically stay for about 11 months, and then they move out on their own. First Church has been a tremendous partner of ours for 20-something years. As they said, they were a founding parish, and they do provide housing for both some of our graduates, but also some people that we support through our diversion program. If there are people that need help, but they don't fit into our program, we find a way to help them. And I think everyone here knows affordable housing is a crisis in Nashua right now, and the particular biggest problem is large capacity, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. So we think this is a great program, and we intend to sign a long-term lease. We know that we can fill those, and overflowing, we can fill way more. So we thank them for their support, and we think this is a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts and your presentation.
Okay, any other questions?
Councilman Timmons, go ahead.
Just a comment. I like the camaraderie that the nonprofits have with each other, to piggyback, to use each other for whatever program you need to get what you need to be done for the citizens of this city. And that's commendable. It warms my heart that if you can't find solutions at one nonprofit, you can go to another, you work together collaboratively, and it's just a fantastic thing to do.
Thank you.
I want to echo that sentiment. I was commenting to Alderman Kelly at the beginning of this that, Nashua, everybody's here to apply for grant money, and everyone's collegial about it. They're having chats ahead of time. You know, it's good to see people again, those kind of comments. And that really reflects the collaboration and cooperation that you see in the city. Wednesday morning, the first Wednesday of every month, we have the continuum of care meeting up here in the auditorium, and the auditorium is full. Like, all the organizations come to collaborate. So it's very, very good to see this kind of cooperation, collaboration, and for taxpayers, it's good for their wallet. I mean, if you guys are all working together, tackling issues that the city doesn't necessarily have to exclusively try to handle through city welfare or other things, that's better for everybody. You do a better job, and we appreciate that.
Can I make a comment?
Alderman Kelly.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to thank you for your creativity in terms of pivoting and trying to meet the need of the affordable housing crisis that we have in the city. It's one of my biggest things that I like to talk about and get people motivated to make some real change. So I appreciate the project.
I'm Andy Armstrong, 12 Maple Leaf Drive, and just want to say that two stated missions of our congregation are hunger and housing. And so in the last 5 years, we basically revamped our entire campus to provide transitional and diversion housing. So this is the last piece of the leg, so to speak, taking a look at the imprint of our campus and what we can provide. So thank you for hearing us out tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
It's encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next up, we have Stepping Stones.
Wow, my turn already, that went fast. Hi, I'm Kathy Farland from Stepping Stones. Our address over there is 3 Pine Street Extension in Nashua. We have put in 2 grant proposals this time, one for operating funds to help keep the center running. We have had, just so far this year, just to give you an idea, we've had 46 youth in, 14 of them new in the 49 days we've been open so far this year. Which is almost 500 visits in just that time. So there is clearly a large need for our services. I wish there wasn't, but there is. So we want to make sure that we're there for the youth when they need us. The bigger proposal that we are requesting is we are requesting funds for our new Level Up program, which is actually housing for our youth. We have been offering day services, case management, all the other services that the youth need, but we haven't been able to give them a place to sleep up until now. So we are actually in negotiations for a dorm building at Daniel Webster College, where we would actually be able to house through all the 4 levels of the program 102 youth. So it would be a tremendous amount of just so many of the kids that we would be able to help get off the streets that are sleeping at night when they leave the center now are going out in sleeping bags and tents or sleeping in their cars. And it's just so hard for them to make any progress living like that. So being able to offer this would be just a huge opportunity for them to be able to take those steps forward and help solve a big problem within the city as well. So we are looking for a grant to redo the work that needs to be done on 15 townhouses that is on the property. That is actually at the level 4 of our program. So it would be emergency housing and then pre-transitional housing, transitional housing, and then the townhouses. And with each of those steps, the youth will have to have met certain benchmarks. They will have to be paying a small amount of rent as they go forward up until the townhouses, where without any vouchers or without any social services, they can afford to move to those, likely with a roommate, at close to market rent. So our whole goal, our whole mission at Stepping Stones is for these youth to be able to become self-sufficient. And we want them to be able to wean themselves off of those services so that by the time they're done the program, they have a year's rent at a location. We can give them a good landlord reference. They are close to already paying market rent, so they should be able to move into an apartment from there, and that they've learned all the skills that they need along the way to be independent and to be successful. Anything else you can think of offhand?
Hi, Zach Bayonne, 7 Breck Drive, Merrimack, New Hampshire. I just wanted to thank the Human Affairs Committee for hearing this request. It's in nonprofit world, many people can relate, things change all the time. I know when I wrote the initial request, it was for one property, and then an opportunity arose. Honestly, when it did arise with this Daniel Webster property, I realized that really what we're looking at doing here fully fulfills the commitments of the CDBG committee in terms of being able to appeal to low-income individuals, in terms of being able to provide housing and fully complete the wraparound services that we've been proud to offer so far. So thank you.
It's pretty incredible that you're looking at a project as such a young organization. I mean, the capacity for emergency shelter placement for youth is sorely needed, so that would be very much welcome in the community. But I mean, it's worth commenting too. You're literally having them in a college campus or a former college campus. That's pretty good visualizing for what their future could look like if they can get out of the crisis that they're in right now.
That's what we're hoping for. As far as the partial funding goes too, if we were to receive partial funding for it, we would just have to spread out the amount of the townhouses that we would be able to renovate at one time, but we would still hope to get them all done eventually.
Alderman Kelly, you have a question?
I also just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. That 102 youth is incredible. My questions were just around, so you were talking about the level up. Is that 102 from the beginning to the end, or is that all transitional? Like, what is that?
No,
like?
that would be from beginning to end. So it would be, let's see if I could remember all the numbers. Emergency housing would be 24, pre-transitional housing would be 26, transitional housing would be 22, and then the townhouses would be 30. So as they continue to reach their benchmarks, they can move up to less people. So with the emergency housing, it starts with 6 in a room. The pre-transitional housing goes to just 2 in a room. The transitional housing is just individuals in their own room. And then the townhouses would be likely just be 2 people living in a 2-bedroom townhouse apartment. So they have the, I can't think of the word, sorry, I'm nervous. But it gives them reasons to want to continue to move forward with the program because they're getting better things as they go.
And if I could have a follow-up. Yep. Thank you. Sounds like an incredible program. I'm really excited to see it come to fruition.
Me too.
It was a long time ago that I was at college, but I remember my dorm didn't have a kitchen. So how are you putting in kitchens or are you gonna have a main kitchen? Like, how does that gonna work?
So there are actually 2 kitchen spaces, one on each floor. So the lower floor will be the pre-transitional and emergency housing, and there's a kitchen area there. And then the second floor also has one as well, which is the transitional housing. So they will have their own. There's also big living areas on each floor. There's a RA apartment in there, and then there's 2 additional single units that we will be using for RA spaces as well.
Great. Just kitchens can get costly and want to make sure you've got everything you need. But that's great. Thank you so much. I'm excited for the project.
Alderman Timmons.
Again, another great program. I do have one question regarding, once the program is up and running, do you believe that these apartments will generate revenue in the future to keep Stepping Stone going?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, the rent that we should be getting from between the apartments and the transitional housing units should cover all of our expenses at the college, plus help to fund the drop-in center. So it's actually, it won't completely fund everything, but about 75%.
I mean, you're a nonprofit. You're not supposed to make your riches.
It would be nice if we didn't have to, if we could be completely self-sufficient, but we're working on it. So, anything else?
No, great work. Very good presentation.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. And just a reminder to everybody here, these are projects that are proposed as part of the CDBG budget. That's money that comes from, I guess, Urban Manager Long will probably touch on this in the full meeting part, but we haven't had the aldermanic resolution yet. So we're just having the opening round of presentations and descriptions of what would be proposed, and then we can kind of review it once we're a little further down the process. Manager Long, if you want to refine anything that I just said for accuracy or introduce the next group.
No, I'll just mention that CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grant, and those are funds that the city receives through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And next up, we have the Nashua Children's Home.
Hello, I'm David Vigliotti, Executive Director of Nashua Children's Home, located 125 Amherst Street. I'm going to tell you a few things about Nashua Children's Home. We were founded in 1903 as the Nashua Protestant Orphanage Association, so been around for 120 years at this point. We do a few things. One is we provide housing for young people that are unable to live with their families for a variety of reasons. These are children referred by New Hampshire's Child Protective and Juvenile Justice Agency. Kids that have experienced any level of trauma, have been physically abused, sexually abused, have been subjected to domestic violence, subjected to excessive substance use. So we work with those youngsters to help them with a better coping mechanism and hopefully move on to more productive adult lives. I mean, at this point, we're set up to provide housing for 46 of these young people between the ages of 7 and 18 years of age. About half of those kids are City of Nashua residents. Most of those kids are identified with special education needs. And for those youngsters that we can keep at Nashua Children's Home and attending Nashua schools, the savings to the taxpayers of this city financially are about $50,000 per year, as opposed to what the cost would be if they were placed in an out-of-district special education program. We also provide our own schooling for youngsters that are referred by their school districts. And our most recent program, it's 20 years old at this point, is our transitional living program, where we work with the population of young people that's at particular risk of homelessness. These are young people between 18 and 22 years of age that are basically on their own, that are challenged with the perils of adult living, with the challenges of adult living as 18-year-olds with zero financial support from their families of origin. Working with local people, one of the adages that we have is that geography is our enemy. We work much more effectively with local people, keeping them involved with their families, with their community. The transitional living program, the only public funding that it receives is from this city. It functions primarily with charitable grants and donations, so it's funded almost entirely by private charitable dollars. I'm actually embarrassed to tell you that I came tonight prepared to speak to the operating project that comes to the city, not prepared to talk to the CDBG project. I was frankly a bit confused, about that. I know our CDBG proposal, I believe, was for window replacement at our 86 Concord Street facility, but I actually got my signals crossed around the purpose of this meeting tonight and came prepared to speak to you about the operation of the transitional living program and asking for continued funding for that project, which again, the funding from the city is the only public funding that goes to that project. So
I would reassure you that we will definitely be talking about this in several meetings to come.
Okay,
Nothing HUD is ever just, oh, it's easy. So there will be the resolution sent to the board, there'll be a public hearing on it, there will be, when the actual amount of money is identified and dispersed, so several more.
Julian is refreshing my memory that it was for a replacement of our fire panels for about $10,000 piece of work, so
Okay.
that's the project that's entailed. Thank you, Joel, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Any questions from committee members?
I do have one question.
Alderman
Yes.
Timmons.
Thank you for the
Sure.
presentation, even though it wasn't what you wanted to
Right.
speak about, but
Sure.
since you brought it up.
Okay.
The transition housing program,
Yeah.
the 18 to 22-year-old young people.
Yes.
I can say that.
Yes.
Young adults.
Mm-hmm.
The house that's in front of the children's home, is that the same facility that these children, young
Yeah,
adults go-
well,
go
basically, the Nashua Children's Home, the main facility is at 125 Amherst Street. The transitional living program is at 123 Amherst Street.
Which is this one?
It's abutting the main property. It's a 5-unit apartment building. So it houses up to 8 young people. And again, when I speak to people about that program, and sometimes I talk to community groups, and I will ask a question, how many of you have sons and daughters 18, 19 years old? All these hands go up. And I say, how many of your sons and daughters, even with the advantages and privileges that I would assume they would have had growing up, would be able to live on their own without a check from you every week? And no hands go up then. But those are the challenges that the young people in Nashua Children's Home are confronted with. I mean, they've been really dealt a tough hand in life, and now they're 18 years old on their own at extreme risk of homelessness. And this program provides housing and provides ongoing staff support and guidance to help those young people become productive adults, more or less softening their transition to adult living. But yes, it's the 123 Amherst Street.
Yeah, I just never seen you had to come in or go out. The door, even
Yeah.
if it's open up. Well, it just reassured me that it's open. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
An organization that's been operating as long as the Children's Home is, it's easy to think of them just as orphans that are here, but a lot of Nashua citizens that do a lot of really good work in our community came from Nashua Children's Home and benefited from working through your programs.
Absolutely, and some of those people have spoken very publicly about what Nashua Children's Home meant to them in their lives and their productivity as adults at this point.
It's a heck of a credit to your program.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I should mention it as well that my office recently did site visits to their transitional housing and also went really great.
Did you bring code enforcement with you? That's the
No.
impression I got, and I was like, whoa. I mean,
No,
it's a
but
little intimidating.
we did do inspections based on our city housing code.
So
And-
it's understood that you guys do due diligence too, to make sure that when people are presenting programs, that they're viable, they're sustainable, and we're not having people come up with first draft, presentations and that kind of stuff. So the Urban Planning's Department is very supportive of nonprofits as they develop these types of things.
We certainly tried to be. And next up, we have the Nashua Police Athletics League.
Good evening, folks. I'm Sean Nelson.
We need to talk, Mike.
Taller than
You just take it off. Yeah, easier.
karaoke night. So I'm Sean Nelson, 35 Sullivan Street, here representing Nashua Police Athletic League, known to many by Nashua PAL. The project ahead on the application is all life safety. So for folks that don't know anything about PAL, everything we're doing is strengthening youth with an anchor to connecting cops and kids. So we do that in a variety of different ways. We have 16 different programs. All the funding that we're talking about would be directed to the Youth Safe Haven, which is located on Ash Street. If you're not familiar with the tree streets, it's the tougher part of town. Depending on how you slice and dice the data, anywhere from 10 to 20% of the crime in our city is happening within a half mile of the PAL building. So there's always a need, and there's always plenty of young people running around the streets.
Keep going.
You want to borrow mine?
The sound
Just
guy
kidding.
is updating things.
So the life safety, the issues that we have at the building now, we just received 2 years ago a group called Building on Hope. They choose one nonprofit in the state of New Hampshire every other year, and they chose Nashua PAL. So we were very fortunate to receive that funding, and the building is shinier and more beautiful than it ever was. We raised about $300,000 to what ultimately ended up being a $2 million renovation to the building that was done by volunteers, this amazing group called Building on Hope. They're all contractors and designers and trades folks that come in and do these transformations. So the items on the list here are the things that didn't make that list. They're life safety, they're those where one pipe ends and nobody wanted to touch that older one to make the connection, that type of stuff, and including a fire escape in the back of the building. We did have some folks come in and add some stabilizing steel beams to the structure, but nobody wanted to scrape and paint it because it's potentially lead paint and other things. So the project at hand is the stuff that didn't get done in this amazing renovation that we're hoping we can get support for through this process.
Okay. Any comments from the board? Alderman Timmons.
Well, of course, I do know everything about PAL. Thank you, Sean. And congratulations winning the state championship.
Trying.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Well, I definitely think PAL is very much appreciated. There's a lot of news, recently about the sports and difficult confrontations and all that kind of stuff happening. And having the Police Athletic League, having that interaction, that positive interaction with police is key, and giving children a positive way to express themselves athletically. And then also in the inner city neighborhoods where a lot of your initial police contact might be seeing your cousin or your uncle or someone, talking to police. That can be very intimidating, and it can be very, very disenfranchising. So having positive interactions, police officers shooting hoops with the kids and mentoring them and, ice cream with the cops, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's really, really valuable, and it helps maintain good relationships with the population that really, really needs it. Thanks for your work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. And next up, we have Marguerite's Place.
Good evening. I'm Hannah Stoller, Executive Director of Marguerite's Place. We're at 87 Palm Street. Marguerite's Place is in its 29th year of operation. We run 3 core programs: transitional housing for women and children experiencing homelessness. We have 20 apartment units, 10 on-site on Palm Street, which is phase 1, 10 off-site, scattered site across the city. That supports families who are experiencing homelessness. Family homelessness is on the rise. My other colleagues in the room who serve those families will tell you the same thing. In 2019, we had 40 applications for that phase 1. Last year, we had 124, with no more capacity, less capacity actually, because it's taking longer for families to move on based on the housing market. We also run a licensed, quality, affordable childcare program. To our knowledge, it is the lowest cost childcare program in the city of Nashua that has the quality rating that we have, which is the highest offered by the state of New Hampshire. And that is based on the mission and belief that we know tons of studies will show that early childhood education is a differentiating factor in long-term outcomes in a child's life. And unfortunately, too many families are have to decide between literally taking on the cost of a second mortgage or not giving their children that access to childcare, which also impacts low-income parents' ability to build their career. And we serve 30 children in that program. Common misconception that it is only for our housing residents. It's actually about half housing residents and half community-based families, most of whom are within a half-mile radius walking distance from Marguerite's Place, so Tree Street families as well, and 90% of whom are classified as extreme low or low income per the HUD standards of this grant request. And lastly, last year we launched our community programs, which consists of group programming for families across those programs. We really saw a need for this post-COVID. It was a universally isolating time for everyone in society, but for families who were within our housing programs are amongst some of the most isolated in our community, having recently fled domestic violence, exiting a recovery program, leaving incarceration, single parents who are now parenting for the first time in their own space with nobody, and it's lockdown. And so we started these group programs, which were just a reason to get everyone together, but also a time where parents can build skills together. And those range from financial literacy programming, career and educational development programming, mental health supports. We have a really popular parent support group with a local child psychologist where parents build skills together. And sometimes family fun nights. We went to the Silver Knights game this summer, which was a blast. And that is a new program that we launched last year that we hope to grow and given more space opportunity to expand to families who are not currently enrolled in our program. So that's the fun part. My grant request is not the most glamorous one on the docket tonight. We are seeking 4 hot water heaters, 10 new toilets, I told you not glamorous, and 3 bathroom vanities and bathtubs. What's unique about our transitional housing program is that for our phase 1 program, it is still individual apartment units. And what I tell anyone coming by for a tour is what's wonderful about it is so many of our families have literally never had their own space for themselves. We had a woman move in last week who has been sleeping in her sister's walk-in closet for the last 3 years with her 4-year-old. And so they all of a sudden have bedrooms and their own, every unit has their own washer, dryer, bathroom, kitchen, living room. It's really unique and wonderful. And is part of the reason why our phase 1 is a little bit longer term than some other programs, because it is a full apartment unit. Downside to that is we have 10 sets of washers and dryers to maintain, 10 bathtubs, 10 hot water heaters, you name it. So the hot water heater request is the 4 remaining that we haven't replaced in the last 4 years because they've either gone unplanned or we were told they were near their expiration date. Those are expensive to replace, and we take the heat and hot water of our residents very seriously, so we have been on top of that. And then we have had ongoing toilet and tub leaks in certain units, and that is just based on most of those are original to when we purchased the buildings in 1994. So that is what we are seeking support from. If the whole grant was not funded today, we have prioritized those. Our wonderful vendors and facilities guys have given a list from 1 to 10 and what is what's going to blow up first and what's going to blow up last, and we will attack them in that order. Thank you. Any questions?
One of the things that you touched on was that family homelessness is very prevalent. There has been a struggle with family homelessness for a long time, but it's being recognized, and it's important for us to recognize taking families and helping them stay intact through the experience of homelessness is crucial to children growing up in intact families. So, I mean, in the past where maybe the father had to take the oldest son and stay in single male accommodations because there wasn't room for a larger family or multiple spaces. Programs like Marguerite's Place, like Family Promise, like the Front Door Agency, keep those families intact. They help support single parents that are going through, I mean, it's hard enough to be a parent, and it's hard enough to be a single parent, but going through being a single parent and working through homelessness and extreme poverty conditions while trying to raise children with a semblance of a childhood is very difficult. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of support from the community. So you guys are doing really, really good work, and I would not consider making sure the toilets are working for any household with children to be anything but very, very important.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you bringing up Front Door and Family Promise. I think one of the greatest parts of Nashua, which you echoed before, is the collaboration. When we don't have space, we call one another, and families from their programs are within our childcare program. So it really is, we're all invested in supporting those families in the best way that we can.
I do have one question. Okay, thank you. And I agree with Alderman Lopez on everything that he says. I'm not going to repeat that, but I do have one question. How long does a family stay in transitional housing?
Sure. So we don't have a hard cutoff. In our phase 1, it averages 2 years. Since I have been with Marguerite's Place since 2019, I have seen a family in and out within 8 months because they needed that reset time to stabilize their finances and were able to move on. And I saw a family who was there for just over 3 years. It's very individualized to what their goals are, as long as they're actively engaged in the case management process, which is pretty rigorous. We will not exit someone unless they are moving forward on. In our phase 2 program, which is the 10 scattered site condos across Nashua, that averages 5 years. Those programs are leased, rented at well below market rate, about a fourth of market rate. And we slowly increase income over time so that people, when they graduate, are able to access market rate or many times home ownership, which is huge.
Fantastic.
To reflect on that collaboration, when I was working at the soup kitchen, an example of a family was one staying at Marguerite's Place that worked with the the financial assistance programs in the Front Door Agency. Ultimately were able to go through their education programs, and I mean, in an 8-month period, they both got their LNAs, they transformed their careers, they learned English, and because of the match program, which I don't think is still in existence anymore, they were able to save and put a deposit on a house. So, I mean, they moved right out, and considering the size of their family, that was pretty important.
Yeah.
So the collaboration really does work, and
Yes.
it is very, very beneficial to the city of Nashua because it's the difference between our city welfare budget as it is now and like a $10 million program. So we appreciate all the work that you guys do. Alderman Kelly, do you have any questions or comments? Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last presentation will be from the city's Community Development Division.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director for the city. This is always an interesting night, particularly because I'm in this chamber quite a bit and feel relatively comfortable, and I often don't this evening, particularly because there's so many impressive organizations within this room doing incredible work within the city. And so when talking about what we are requesting as a city for our CDBG request, it often pales in comparison when it comes to the impact that these groups are doing are having in the community. But nonetheless, I'm here this evening to request some funding and want to speak briefly to it and answer any questions that you might have. But I certainly understand all the efforts that have been presented to you this evening. Again, my name is Matt Sullivan. I'm the Community Development Director. I'm actually here on behalf of the Economic Development Division, and a request for $50,000 for a facade improvement program that was actually last in place within the city of Nashua between the years of 2013 and 2014, and created and resulted in the improvement of about 10 to 15 facades in the downtown that were owned that were either owned by low to moderate income individuals, business owners, or property owners, or were in areas that were determined to be of slum and blight and needed relief. There are several examples I'd point to, two just to name as an example, are Jajabelle's and Face Custom Cabinetry. Excellent work was done there, but again, there are 10 to 12 other entities that received funding and were able to improve the look and feel of their businesses downtown and really hopefully put them in a more advantageous position from a business perspective. Again, this request is to reestablish that program at an amount of $50,000. We believe, particularly myself and Director Cummings, this is a particularly opportune time based on the reinvestment and investment and new development happening in the downtown area. We recognize it's also been an incredibly challenging time for folks, and particularly business owners, coming out of the time of COVID and the public health crisis associated with that. Many of our businesses in the downtown area found it very difficult to survive, and we think this is a particular important opportunity to provide them with some much needed support, particularly those that are either run by low to moderate income individuals or are in buildings that are owned by low to moderate income individuals. And yes, there are some in the downtown core. While we've not defined specific program guidelines, what I would recommend, should this program be awarded, is a maximum of a $10,000 award, though we expect we'd have many smaller awards. And again, these would go to the improvements of signage, facades, or other exterior elements of structures downtown. There will be a qualification and a review process led by the Economic Development Division in partnership with Community Development and, of course, urban programs. And then those qualifying would, in fact, be awarded monies. They would have a contractor come in to do the work, and we'd hopefully see some much-needed investment in these properties in the downtown area. I just want to say, to close, and I'll be very brief here, that I'm extremely excited about this opportunity. Again, this is a unique time in downtown Nashua where development is happening in an unprecedented way. We're seeing residential development and associated business development really happen right before our very eyes, and we think this opportunity is an important way to enhance that. I do just want to quickly say that in the event that the committee needs to make modifications to the funding amounts that the agencies are requesting this evening, we would be happy to accept a reduced amount if that feels appropriate, but we do think that some level of reward in implementing this program would be a very positive step forward for downtown Nashua. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Considering the facade on that building over there fell off and displaced a bunch of residents, I can kind of see why you might be looking in that direction. Just as a point of clarification, when you say Jajabelle's was a recipient, do you mean Jajabelle's old location, which is Vibe Yoga?
That is correct. Okay. Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right. Thank you for
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, so it's a little bit of a record for public comment on the Human Affairs Committee. So we will, I guess if there's no further presenters, we'll move on to our actual business. But I would like Urban Programs Manager Long to come up and kind of capstone the process for us, just so that participating agencies that have come here to make public comment can kind of get a sense of whether they should remain, observe, you're welcome to, or whether they're on the clock and we can save some nonprofits some money.
Yes, of course. You're all very welcome to stay for the meeting. It's a public meeting. It's not on the agenda to discuss your grant applications, however. The first step of that will be legislation that is going to the full Board of Aldermen on March 14th. And from there, will be referred back to the Human Affairs Committee, and they will be discussing your grant applications as part of the overall process of reviewing the draft action plan for FY 2024. That will likely be at the April meeting. There will be a formal public hearing after the Board of Aldermen has done its first review of the resolution, and that will be very well publicized. I'm also happy to email you about that as well.
So March 14th is Pie Day. If anybody would like to come and make public comment, so you can get your slice of the pie, You will have to go to the second one, unfortunately, the one at the end of the meeting, because we can't act on it other than refer it. But just want to make sure you guys all know what the time frame is and where your efforts can best be applied.
Yes, and we're required to submit our annual action plan by May 15th. So this process will be wrapping up sooner than the overall city's budgeting process. And I will keep you informed at every step of the process of what body of the city is reviewing it, when they will be done with that review, any recommendations, I will let you know those and keep you well informed. And in the interim, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to call or email me.
All right, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, we have communications.
If I could comment first. Before everyone leaves, I just wanted to thank you all for coming in and echo what Director Sullivan said around all the work you're doing in the community. It's too late now.
Yeah, they're already moving.
They're already
Good
moving.
effort.
It's fine. It's fine.
All right, so moving on to communications. Just a housekeeping. If everybody could take conversations out of the room, we actually still have to do the meeting.
It's really bad. Okay. We have communication from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding Community Development Block Grant FY 2024 grant applications update.
All right, without objection, we will accept that communication and place it on file.
We have another one too. We also have a communication from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager.
Again, if the
In the
audience
chamber,
could
please.
exit the chamber and have those conversations elsewhere. Manager Long, could you just talk to people and try to have them move out?
Thank you. I wanted to make sure they could hear us.
Suppressed passion just exploded in the room. Okay,
Love
so
the passion.
please
We
read
have,
that
yes, our
communication.
second communication from Julian Long, Urban Programs Manager, regarding Urban Programs Department updates, January, February 2023.
There being no objection, we'll accept that and place it on file as well.
Great.
All right. Unfinished business?
There is none.
New business resolutions.
We have before us R 23085 relative to the acceptance of $58,753 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Exotic Species Program and to authorize the transfer of matching funds. I'll move to recommend final passage.
Okay. Do we have any presentation on that?
Good evening, Deb Chisholm, Sustainability Manager. Nobody wanted to stay and listen to this?
You wanted to know all about it.
I may have waved you off.
Wow,
Sorry.
jeez, okay. So this is really my annual approach to Human Affairs Committee. We are very grateful for the last several years to have been offered 50% of the cost of our aquatic invasive species management program on the Nashua River. This coming season, we'll be hiring a contractor to apply the aquatic herbicide to the Nashua River portion just north of the dam where the boat launch is at Mine Falls Park, extending all the way up to just about Hollis Crossing Condominium Association on that side, on the Hollis side, and then on the Nashua side would be Sherrill Street in the Rogers Mobile Home Park. There's a cove in there that also gets the application. It's been very effective, and it's really about making sure that we do this every year. If we didn't have this funding from the state, we would have to find it elsewhere because it's really a vital piece of keeping that waterway viable.
And as this is a matching fund, that means that we're also transferring an allocated amount from our budget previously to meet that match.
We have some contractor funds in the sustainability general fund budget.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
You answered mine.
All right. And then, do we need to vote or can we
Yes.
just say that? Okay. Then, all in favor of recommending final passage, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We will recommend final passage. Next up.
we have before us R 23091, amending the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2023 relative to the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Housing Improvements and Rental Improvements Program. I will move to recommend final passage.
Manager Long, would you like to come up and?
Good evening again. I'm a lot shorter than Sean.
We all are.
So this one is pretty basic. So we have a housing improvements program and a rental improvements program. The housing improvements program is for the home ownership side. The rental is for the renter side. Both serve lower income residents, and both are funded through CDBG. We tend to have more demand for the home ownership side, and we're getting low on funds for that. So this resolution requests that we move $25,000 from rental side to homeowner side.
And this reflects the amount of demand that you've seen for these programs?
Yes.
How are the programs presented to the public?
So there's a page on the city website that discusses both programs, and they both go through our office.
And I imagine you collaborate a little bit with building inspectors and code enforcement?
Yes, so our project administrator, Mike Chungers, is the primary staff person who works on that and has a construction background in.
Do you collaborate with any of the nonprofits that might have large-scale voucher programs? I'm thinking maybe renters don't own the property, so they don't know, I could go to the city and ask for money and that kind of stuff. But they might be able to tell their landlord, like, I have a broken stair rail, I have X, Y, or Z thing that needs to be fixed, but you don't need to raise my rent to do it. You could talk to the city and maybe, if thinking these are people with fixed incomes, maybe that resolves an issue that they would have that they were unaware of a resource for.
No, that's a great point. I don't know offhand whether we've reached out to the nonprofit agencies that are also landlords, but I'll ask my staff if that's something we've done in the past, and if we haven't, absolutely we'll do that going forward.
I would like to apologize to the national community for sending out all of the people who run those programs. That was a mistake. But maybe talking to them during part of the CDBG program might be a good idea.
Yes, we regularly have conversations with most, if not all, of those agencies.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in favor of recommending final passage, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries. We're recommending final passage.
Thank you.
Next up, we have
R 23095, relative to the acceptance of $25,231.25 from the United States Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance into Police Grant Activity FY 2023 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Program. I would like to move to recommend final passage.
I see we have a presenter.
Yes, Kevin Passell, Nashua PD. I am the grant manager for the police department, and I'm here to discuss this grant that we get every year. This grant helps the PD with vest replacement and also buying new vests for new officers that come on. The grant pays for 50% of the value of the vest. The vests are $1,009.25. There's a 2-year state bid, but the vendors can actually go to the state which happened 2 years ago, after we had, applied for the grant. They had raised it almost $200, but it does help keep our budget line item down with this grant. So this is for roughly about 50 vests for officers. Again, most of it's for replacement. The vests that we wear are only good for 5 years. And then we have to replace them. So majority of them are vest replacement, and then we do forecast for retirements and people leaving, so that's also considered in that amount. And it is a match by the department, so it's 50-50. So it's a 50% cash match by the police department. It's already budgeted for us. So.
Okay. Kelly, you have a question?
They always answer the question before I'm even.
I was also going to ask about the match.
You got the answers all out there. I will ask one. So you said you replace them every 5 years. Is there earlier, if there's a incident where someone's vest is actually used within?
No, so the way it was, so sometimes like, we had a period where we didn't go.
Look closer to the mic.
Pick the mic.
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
heard him yell.
I heard.
Yeah, that's what he said.
I heard someone yell.
Good.
So there is times where we had a period we didn't hire, so that kind of messed with the forecast. So we want to obviously spend all the grant funds. So we try not to go too far in advance because, you know, you have a 5-year lifespan. You don't want to be replacing it in 4 years because now, again, you're kind of defeating that whole purpose of, you know, saving money. So as of right now, I think we're going to be all right for this year's grant. That was the one that it expires this August, and that was when we didn't have a bunch of hires. We have now on pace to catch up, but that grant is going to expire. Some of the grants, I should say, some of the vests are due August 11th. There's a huge, I think we have almost 30 vests that are due to replace, but I have to place the order 8 weeks out, and that's before the budget ends. So we're trying to work that out right now, so.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, it's not a match in the sense that we have to give the exact number or we don't get the money, but we're gonna pay twice as much if we don't.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
What do you do with the old vests? You sell them? Or?
No. We dispose of them.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
You put them in the cat litter and then?
Same thing like car seats, like baby seats.
That's what my question was.
Yeah.
I almost made that.
Yeah, because like you don't want to
Landfill
put something out because again, it's a safety issue. You don't want to say, because if the manufacturer's saying it's good for 5 years, like, oh, we retread them to somebody else and.
Outside the
You know,
warranty,
yeah,
sorry
that's,
about
that,
that.
yeah, and it
It's
came
funny-
from the National Police Department, you know, the liability, so yeah, we dispose of them.
Oh, we appreciate you not getting us sued. Alderman Kelly?
Oh, it's funny that you say that because that's actually what I was going to use for my example was, you know, if you're in an accident, you have to replace that car seat.
Correct.
So I was wondering if the same applied to vests.
So, we haven't come across that in a long time, so we won't talk about it.
Let's not give
We
them.
hope we
Love
don't.
it. It's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to make a comment.
Alderman Timmons?
We love supporting the police department.
Yes, you guys are great.
So, that's as important. It's a safety feature you need, bottom line.
And it is an SOP, so the officers always wearing the vest. So you hear those horror stories where they weren't wearing we're required to wear vests when we're on patrol, so.
You're pretty heavy, though.
Yeah, they get heavy. With all the
It's like a
gear.
free workout, yeah. All right, well, thank you for the education. If there's no further questions.
Thank you for being so
Thank
patient
you.
too.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much.
Mm.
Have a good night.
Good night.
All right, so we have a motion to recommend final passage of R 23-095. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And motion carries. Do we have any new business?
None.
Any tabled in committees?
I believe that what is on the table is staying on the table. Oh, it is not. Oh.
Please bring it back.
Manager Long
Oh,
has
I
arrived.
lied. I missed that. I would like to move to remove from the table R 22-060.
All right, the motion is on the table. Manager Long, would you like to tell us why we're removing?
No, we have to agree to remove it from the table.
Oh, we can have discussion about removing? it?
Nope. It's not a discussable.
Okay, all in favor of removing it from the table? Say
Aye.
Opposed?
And now, I need
Yep,
to
make a motion
recommend
for
final
final
passage, correct. So, that means that our, wait, hold on, where is it? I missed the page?
R 22-060?
Yep, I got it. R 22-060, accepting funds and adopting an allocation plan for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development House Investment Partnerships Program funds received through the American Rescue Plan Act. I would like to make a motion to recommend final passage. You weren't gonna let us get out of here.
And now Manager Long may present.
Please.
why we're
Thank you
taking
very
this on the
much.
table.
Yes, we need to submit our allocation plan to HUD by the end of the month in order to keep the funds. So
Great.
that is why I request that it be taken off the table.
I just missed that, sorry about that.
Nope, not at all. In one of my many communications to you, you should have received a link to the updated version of the allocation plan. We finally were able to receive our technical assistance that was highly advised from HUD. The main thing was the plan got quite a bit longer. They recommended that we expand our data and analysis. It didn't really change much in terms of the conclusions, but it is a more robust data set now, justifying why we've proposed the allocations that we have. The other major change was in the original draft of the plan, there was about 81,000 included under nonprofit operational category. That has been removed from the revised draft of the plan, as after discussing with pardon me, the technical assistance providers, it seemed to make more sense for it just to be nonprofit capacity building, would serve the purposes that I'd originally intended for nonprofit operating.
So for anybody trying to follow at home, that's on page 30 of the minutes. No, earlier 30 pages were mostly the CDBG applications. Any additional questions from the committee?
I have one question.
Alderman Timmons.
Director Long, I don't quite remember why we tabled it in the first place.
Yes, it was because our HUD representative strongly recommended that we receive technical assistance for the plan before we submitted it. And it was unfortunately a fairly lengthy process to receive that technical assistance after we requested it, but that did finally happen in January of this year.
Okay.
Great. So adjusting to capacity building versus operating has the advantage of helping nonprofits that are trying to rebuild after the pandemic kind of put their pieces back in order without necessarily subsidizing those that don't have a sustainability plan. So I can see the advantage of that. But were there any applicants who were relying on this because they couldn't meet their operating needs?
So we don't have any applicants yet because we have to submit the plan first before we can actually put out the call for applications.
Okay.
Capacity building is more for nonprofits who would be new to the realm of affordable housing. In particular, I think Stepping Stones would possibly be an agency that'd be interested in this, since they're expanding from, their drop-in center model to entering more of the housing world.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a huge fan of their work, and it's very much needed to have more organizations expanding to meet the need rather than, obviously we can't do business as usual while we have left people who are homeless on Main Street and, crises going on up in Manchester and all that. We have to be nimble. But I thought I would bring it up because I did hear several organizations say they were applying for CDBG money for operating because that's the only place they can.
Yeah. If the committee feels strongly about restoring money to nonprofit operating, I think that's certainly justifiable, and I don't have a super strong preference on that.
Personally, I would be inclined to wait for someone to actually make that case rather than just assuming it's out there. So I think the work that you're doing is good, but I definitely hear the opinions of the other committee members.
If I could,
Kelly?
thank you. That's an interesting point, and we did hear quite a few of the nonprofits saying that they were looking for operational budgets. So the way that the plan is written now, they would not be eligible for it if they wanted straight operating budgets?
That's correct. It would have to be in some form of capacity building, which certainly could cover operating expenses as long as they were part of building their capacity to provide the housing programs.
Can I do a follow-up? That can be a little squishy. Could building capacity mean I'm bringing on some new staff members?
No, I don't think that's, squishy at all. I think that's absolutely legitimate. Yes.
Okay. Do you feel confident that moving it over won't have a significant effect on some of the applicants that might be coming through?
I think I feel comfortable with this. I think what agencies might need in terms of pursuing home ARP funds, if they need funds beyond just supportive services or rental assistance, I think it would be in capacity building versus general operating.
Okay. Thank you.
And certainly one is also, I'll say, we want to submit as strong a plan as possible, but we do have the ability to amend the plan after it's submitted and approved if for some reason we feel the need to do so.
And you're on a timeline right now?
Pardon?
You're on a timeline right now?
Yes, we must submit by March 31st.
Great.
So we shouldn't change the font.
So we should leave it alone for now. We're good.
Alderman Timmons, any input?
Oh, thank you.
All right. Then, motion to recommend final passage of R 22-060. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. And the ayes have it. General discussion. Anything we want to bring up that wasn't on the agenda, committee members? Public comment. Any of the many members of the public that I see out there right now would like to come forward and make public comment? It appears that there are none. Madam Clerk, oh, remarks by the Alderman, sorry. Alderman Kelly.
It feels weird to raise my hand while sitting next to you.
Yeah.
I just
Only
wanted.
3 of us and 2 of us are right here. So.
I wanted to make the comment I was trying to make when the rest of the people who came forward for public comment were speaking, but just that I wanted to echo the great work that the nonprofits in Nashua do, and so much of the care that they bring to all of their different pieces that they work on in the city. It was really well, I don't want to say encouraging, but it's encouraging to hear that everyone hears how much we need affordable housing, and so many of them are working very specifically to try to make sure that we can meet that community needs. So it's always hard being on this committee because we have to decide who can get all the money in, who cannot. It doesn't always fit all of the needs in front of us, so that is definitely hard, but I always am buoyed by hearing all the work that they're doing.
Yep, and they find a way, they work together, they collaborate very effectively. I would definitely recommend anybody who's been watching this meeting or participating in it that might want to get more involved, definitely check out the Continuum of Care meetings. They're the first Wednesday of the month at 9 up in the city auditorium. I attended all of them when I was working for nonprofits that were part of them as alderman, since like pretty much everybody who was in the room is located in Ward 4. I still attend pretty regularly, and I help chair the employment committee. So there's a lot of really good work that goes on there, and none of it would be possible without a team effort and a lot of people who are collaborating. So definitely something to check out. A quick comment I wanted to make, Operation Enduring Welcome is helping one of these nonprofits try to help continue its mission of helping build stronger community between civilians and veterans. So we're buying St. Patrick's Day dinner for veterans. You can go to Joanne's Kitchen if you want to pitch in for that. It's like $7. You buy a corned beef and cabbage dinner for a veteran who's staying at Delina's house. So definitely a great activity to check out and a way to celebrate the holidays in a slightly different way. Spread your luck. No further comments?
Okay.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we are adjourned at 8:27. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Can you put this in bonus test, please?
All right,
Oh, I have mine. Or Gloria.